Yo, what's good? So listen to this. I can actually dial in the sidechain in my track with these two knobs in Serum.
The colors all fade without you.
So that's a full sidechain right now, but then I can turn it off. Or I can just add a little bit of sidechain back in.
Colors all fade without you.
But I can adjust the level however much I want.
Life is nothing like it once.
And I can also adjust the shape of it. Like that's more of a pumping effect.
Colors all fade without you.
Doesn't really work for this track, but I can dial in the feeling that I want with this knob. So this also works really well when we have a kick pattern that's not like a 4 on the floor classic house beat.
The colors all fade without you. Maybe they don't call your name.
We're still getting that really tight sidechain, but the cool thing about this is, let's say I wanted to add some sidechain to not just the kick hits, but also the snare hits. What I could do is take these MIDI notes and put them on the snare hits. Those are gonna happen here. But then on those snare hits, I'll just bring the velocity of these notes down, and it's actually gonna create less sidechain compression on the snare hits and more on the red kick hits. Now visually, you'll be able to see what's going on in this compressor.
The colors all fade without you.
So you can see more compression for the kick hits and a little less for the snare hits. So what am I doing here? Like, what's going on? So this might seem a little complicated, but it's actually really easy to set up. So I'm gonna show you how to get this really tight sidechain compression and have total control over it. So normally for sidechain, you would do it one of two ways. You would either use a volume shaping plugin like this, or you would just use a compressor and you would sidechain this to the kick signal, and then you'd have to dial in the right settings. So for the normal compression settings, I would change this mode to pumping, I would crank up the ratio, I would make sure the knee is hard so the compression is happening instantly. Same with the attack and release all the way down so the compression happens right away. And then I would want some look ahead time so it actually sees the kick coming in the future and can adjust to that. And then now we get our sidechain compression. Now the problem with this is if I want really tight pumping sidechain, this is reacting to the level of the kick, and the kick is too long, so it's making the sidechain too long, so it's like way too much of that pumping effect. So there's actually a pretty good solution to this. We can kind of get the best of both worlds. We can get really precise control like we get with a volume shaping plugin, but we can also get reliable kick triggering like we get with a compressor. So what I'm gonna do is start a new track with Serum on it, and we're gonna have Serum play this 4 on the floor kick pattern for now. So we're gonna be using this sound to trigger the sidechain, and I really want this to be like a block of sound, so I'm actually gonna crank up the octave all the way. So visually that looks like this. So you can see it's literally a wall of sound, and we're gonna be able to shape that wall of sound however we want. So back in Serum, I can shape this sound. So we want it to be shorter to trigger the sidechain, and I can zoom in here to really see what's going on. So this shape is really what's gonna be controlling the sidechain. So we wanna set up a macro to be able to control that. So I'll just right click on this point and control it with this macro. And then just over in the settings here, I can make sure that goes both directions, just so you can see it's going both ways now. And then to control the overall sidechain level, we're just gonna map another macro to the level of this sound. So obviously we don't wanna hear that sound, so I'm just gonna set the output of that track to no output, but I want the compressor to be able to pick it up. So I am gonna send it to a bus here. I'll send it to bus 1, and I'll just make sure that's on pre-fader mode. And I'm gonna make sure bus 1 also has no output, and that way I can sidechain the compressor to this ghost bus that has this signal in it. So now I'll open back up this compressor that's doing the sidechaining, but instead of sidechaining it to the kick, we're gonna sidechain it to bus 1. And now we get the triggering from Serum.
Maybe they don't call your name, but I do.
So now we're getting that really tight, controlled sidechain, but there's a few extra benefits to doing it this way. First of all, you don't need to set this up every time you want sidechain. Just save this as a preset, and you can just open it up real quick as a preset, and you're ready to go. Then the second thing I like about this is just having 2 knobs to dial in the feeling of the sidechain. Like, you don't have to mess with the shape and volume shaper. You don't have to mess with the compression settings in a compressor. You just use these 2 knobs to dial in whatever feeling you're looking for.
Maybe they don't call your name, but I do. The colors all fade without you.
So we still get the feeling of kick triggering, but we don't have to rely on the shape of our kick. And like I talked about at the beginning, this works really well when you have a kick that's not like a classic 4 on the floor pattern.
The colors all fade without you. Maybe
And I think one of the coolest benefits of this is being able to control the velocity to control the amount of sidechain you're getting. So let's do the same thing we did with the snare before, and I'll just move those velocities down. But let me show you how to actually set it up this time. So back in Serum, we just take our velocity trigger and I'm gonna reverse it. I'm gonna reverse that curve and I'm gonna send it to the level of the oscillator, and I'm just gonna turn it down all the way. So now all that means is when the velocity of a note is high, it's gonna trigger the maximum sidechain, and when it's low, it's gonna trigger no sidechain or very low sidechain.
the colors all fade without you.
So now instead of going into your automation settings and like adjusting sidechain levels, you could literally get as detailed as adjusting the amount of sidechain on a single beat. So it just gives you a lot of control. Like, if I wanted less sidechain in the verses, I could just take all these notes and just turn the velocity down, and now I get less sidechain in the verses. Now I'm fully aware that with volume shaper plugins, you can trigger them with MIDI or audio, but I find that the MIDI triggering is really actually complicated to set up in these plugins, and the audio triggering just doesn't sound that smooth to my ears. Like, it doesn't work that well all the time. It really depends on the audio sample you're triggering it with. Plus, doing it this way allows you to control the feeling of the sidechain with just 2 knobs, and you have the added benefit of that velocity control. But obviously there's still gonna be times where you just wanna throw a volume shaper plugin on a track, or you just wanna trigger something with the kick with normal compression, but this is just an added tool for your arsenal. So I hope you guys thought this was cool. You can check out bigzstudios.com. I mix music for people. I've got sound packs on there. I've got mixing courses on there. So check those out. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.